Hello everybody, and welcome again to my channel. This time I just wanted to talk a little bit about true friendship. Now, when you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, there is always a precondition for friendship. That precondition is not only that your friend has to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses, but also that they have to meet a certain standard of service as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, meaning that they have to be regular at the meetings, they have to be regular in field service, and preferably maintain a certain hour average, and preferably they have to comment at meetings. So when you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, if you are a good Jehovah's Witness, you are looking for other individuals who are good Jehovah's Witnesses for them to be your friends. And your friendship is entirely conditional on whether or not that other individual maintains their status as a good Jehovah's Witness. So you can have the very closest friend, somebody that you've known for your entire life, but if something happens and they're no longer deemed a good Jehovah's Witness for any particular reason, well, you will suddenly find yourself not that close with that individual. And this, typically speaking, is at the choice of the good Jehovah's Witness versus the one who is no longer considered to be a good Jehovah's Witness. And the really interesting thing here is that Jehovah's Witnesses hold the view that the one who is suddenly no longer a good Jehovah's Witness is the one who is at fault for the break in the friendship, because their conduct or their choices are what forced the action upon the other individual. But this is not necessarily true. In fact, it is definitely not true. Outside of Jehovah's Witnesses, friendships are not based on something so transient as belief in a certain religious practice, and especially not on agreeing with 7 men from New York who have only demonstrated over the course of decades that the one thing they continually do is change their beliefs. So agreeing with people who are constantly changing their beliefs as the basis for a friendship is inherently tenuous and shaky. It's kind of like basing your friendship on sand that can shift with the waves and with the wind, because that's basically what the governing body does. Their beliefs change according to the waves and the wind. So that makes for a really rough and tenuous basis for a friendship. However, when you're not one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you don't have to use the shifting beliefs of a couple of men as a basis for friendship, nor is it necessary to use the religious viewpoints or convictions or actions of another as a basis for friendship. You can begin to form more solid and true friendships based on personal interactions, based on how long you've known somebody, based on how well you get along together, based on the experiences you've been through together, based on things that truly make for friendship. So this is another area where it becomes readily apparent that at the center of the beliefs of Jehovah's Witnesses is conditional love. And the one condition for love of any sort has to be, when you come right down to it, agreement with the men that are currently on the governing body. And I say that because the governing body changes their viewpoints on things on quite a regular basis. And different governing bodies may have different viewpoints, or the way they operate may be different. But to be a good Jehovah's Witness, you have to agree with the governing body. And when you stop doing that, if you stop doing what they're telling you to, well, then that's going to affect your friendship. So when you come right down to the heart of the matter, the conditional love of Jehovah's Witnesses, the primary condition it is based on is being in agreement with the current teachings of the current governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. So if you agreed with the governing body, but if you agreed with their viewpoints 20 years ago, well, you're probably not going to be that good friends with people, because the viewpoints from 20 years are now considered old light, and they're considered incorrect, and there have been improvements, and so on and so forth. So you have to agree with what the governing body says today to be a good Jehovah's Witness, and that has to be the basis of your friendship with any other Jehovah's Witness. So when you break it down to that level, it seems kind of absurd that to be a friend with somebody, you have to agree with a bunch of people who are always changing their opinions and always telling you to do something different. But at the heart of the matter is that's exactly what's going on. So the driving point there is that it is not truly possible to have good friends as Jehovah's Witnesses. They don't train you how to be a true friend. They don't train you how to handle the situations in life that arise. They don't train you how to deal with the trials and tribulations of friendship. In fact, what they train you to do is when your friend disagrees with a governing body, they train you to abandon your friend. They train you to keep most of your thoughts to yourself because you don't know if they'll be offensive. And when you know someone well enough that you know what offends them and what doesn't, you know that if you don't agree on everything, that there are still some things you have to keep to yourself. So on some level, no matter how well you know another Jehovah's Witness, there is always a part of you that you cannot fully open up to that person. But when you're not Jehovah's Witnesses, that doesn't exist in the same form. You can be yourself, you can have open, candid conversations, and you're free to discuss things in a way that mature adults have discussions, something which is almost completely lacking within the realm of Jehovah's Witnesses. Of course, to the person who's still in the organization, it seems like they're having those mature discussions and they're talking of things of import. But to be honest, even the so-called mature Christians in Jehovah's Witnesses, when they discuss important things, are basically discussing what the governing body tells them to discuss. So what that forces to happen is that a friendship within Jehovah's Witnesses is always on some level superficial. You can never break down to a true, honest, lifelong, deep, unconditional friendship when you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses, because there are always conditions and there are always things that just don't get discussed, even with the best of friends. For reasons of fear for guilt, what have you. What's going to happen if you say something and someone gets stumbled. So it's really nice to be able to understand what true friendships are and to seek them and to pursue them and to develop them. This is something that was not possible within the organization, but once you are awake and you leave and you step back and you look at the way things were, you can see for a fact that true friendship was completely impossible as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But the beauty of that is if you run into people that have been through that before yourself, typically speaking, it's quite easy to strike up a friendship with them. So anyways, this is just another thought, another video I put out there. The driving point, though, is that friendship is much better once you're not one of Jehovah's Witnesses than it ever could be when you are one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And in my opinion, understanding that is a big part of truly attaining the happiness that we can have in this life. We've been trained to fear people our whole life, but we no longer have to do that. We can leave the fear and guilt behind and not worry about it. So that's my video for this time. Thanks for watching.